I'm TuckerJ25, and I'm from Cabot, Arkansas. In 1992, a German Shepherd named Apollo was born. In 1994, he graduated from the NYPD Canine Special Operations Division and was one of the first dogs to learn search and rescue. Apollo and his handler, Peter Davis, were called to assist with the rescue during 9/11. Apollo was one of the first dogs on the scene, arriving just 15 minutes after the fall of the towers. Apollo barely survived the flames and falling debris, only surviving because of his fall into a puddle earlier. Right after being reunited with Davis, he got back to work, saving a total of 8 lives. Apollo received the Dickens Medal for his service during 9/11, and unfortunately, he died in 2006, securing his spot as one of the greatest search and rescue dogs ever. So what does this story have to do with Jonah 1? Well, besides the fact that I love a good dog story, Devin Swindle kept using the term Hound of Heaven throughout the week. This leads me to the question I ask myself and the question I ask you when reading Jonah 1. Can a person really run from God? A lot of people try, but are they successful? In answering this question, it would probably be good to look at the only prophet recorded to run from God. Now you may be wondering, who is this prophet that ran from God? Well, my answer for you is Jonah. Now that we know who this prophet is, we can look at and learn from his mistakes. The first way Jonah tried to run from God was by sailing to Tarshish. In case you didn't know, Tarshish, what is now called the Strait of Gibraltar in Spain, was the farthest known point on Israel's map. But why did Jonah run from God? Let's look at Jonah 1, verses 1 through 3 to find out. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it, for their evil has come up before me. But Jonah rose to flee to Tarshish, away from the presence of the Lord. He went down into the ship going to Tarshish, so he paid the fare and fled from the presence of the Lord. The Assyrians at this time were one of Israel's greatest enemies, and Nineveh is a major city in Assyria. So this being said, Jonah was not very inclined to help. So Jonah gets on a boat and tries to get as far away from Nineveh as possible. Let's see if his plan works. Please turn to Jonah 1, verses 4 and 5. But the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship threatened to break up. Then the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God. And they hurled the cargo that was in the ship to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship, and had lain down and was fast asleep. So far, Jonah's grand escape is not going to plan. However, Jonah's not done running. He's just begun. Let's read verses 7 through 17. And they said to one another, Come, let us cast lots, that we may know on whose account this evil has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us on whose account this evil has come upon us. What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you? And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men were exceedingly afraid and said to him, What is this that you have done? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord, because he had told them. Then they said to him, What shall we do to you that the sea may quiet down for us? For the sea grew more and more tempestuous. He said to them, Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you. For I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them. Therefore they called out to the Lord, O Lord, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not on us innocent blood. For you, O Lord, have done as it pleased you. So they picked up Jonah, and they hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. In the book of Jonah, it is made obvious that he would rather die than save the Ninevites. However, even when Jonah is on the verge of death, God's will finds a way in the form of a very popular giant fish. God's not letting Jonah off the hook. His call will be answered and his will be done. Jonah tried to run across land and sea, even willing to die just to get out of his responsibility. So with Jonah going to such lengths to escape, what does this mean for us? Well, obviously, there's no place on earth you can go that God won't be. Jonah admits this in verse 9, and it is reflected in Psalms 139, verse 7, where it says, "Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence?" And you can't escape through death, as Jonah found out in verse 17. Again, this is reflected in Psalm 139, verse 8, where it says, "If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there." While today we might not try to physically run from God, we do seem to try and sidestep the call. Whether that's through drugs, alcohol, bad relationships, getting into trouble, or just flat out ignoring Him, all depends on your preferred method. One thing that was made very clear to me at my week at Caruso is the scary amount of churches shutting their doors for good. Every single one matters because every person reached matters. It's simple math. The more churches there are, the more opportunities there are to bring people to the kingdom. All of this could be avoided if you would just fill in for a lesson every now and then. I get preaching isn't for everyone. I was terrified my first time, and I still get chills. That's why it's so great God gave us all different talents and gifts. Maybe you could lead songs. Maybe you could be an elder or go on a mission. Maybe you could help in the pantry or write cards. Maybe you could even just be a walking Bible and spread God's word through your actions. Now that being said, don't feel pressured into anything. God gave us all free will for a reason. But isn't it worth it? Is it not worth getting out of your comfort zone to spend eternity with someone who not only died for you, your family, and your friends, but also your enemies? Today, if you hear that ringing, please answer the call, because I think someone wants to talk to you.